What's up, everybody? Welcome in here. We got another video that a lot of you all sent to me. My hair's a little crazy, sorry. That you all sent to me on social media. A one-off shocker. People want to know how this is possible. Is this really what we want to do in our justice system? Do we really want to be throwing jurors in jail? Because that's what we have here. A juror is going to jail for conduct displayed during a trial on which they were a juror. We've seen the issues with the Murdoch jurors, with the Take Care of Maya jurors, with the Ghislaine Maxwell jurors, accusations, some founded, some not, some hearings going on right now to determine if we're going to dig deeper, have more juror interviews. But none of them quite rise to the level of asking for a juror to be thrown in jail. The Ghislaine Maxwell case was probably the closest to it. Maya's defense attorneys would probably ask for something like that if they could get the answers that they want, which they can't. But is this something we really want to do in our system? And if the answer to that is yes, where is the line? And I think this video and this story and this case is a great example for us to learn where that line is. Because the line is not disagreeing with the way a juror voted, disagreeing with the way a juror looked at a case or looked at a piece of evidence or looked at a witness. That is not the line. The line is not making a mistake by a juror, because there is a situation in the Ghislaine Maxwell case where I felt like the defense attorneys had a legitimate gripe and argument against how the juror answered certain questions, got on the jury, voted, and then discussed it afterwards. So to me, I did have some problems with that, but it came down to the fact that the judge determined it was a mistake. It was an act of accidental omission, and it would not have changed the verdict. And we are where we are now in that case, and nothing really would have changed because of the juror's negligence, accident, omission. So that's kind of where the line is, I think, is intentional conduct that directly affects the case and a lot of people involved, which we'll talk about when we watch this video, and accidental conduct or just not liking the outcome of the case, because that's never going to be a reason, in my opinion, any juror should be disciplined, reprimanded, punished, or we have ruined the jury system. We pick juries, we do our best to make them fair and unbiased, and we live with the results. Everybody knows, we tell every client, and every trial lawyer and trial judge knows, you never know how it's going to turn out. You can have an idea, you can do research, you can know based on experience and other cases and what's happened, and even talking to other people and doing research on the surrounding areas and the people involved, but you never know. You're trusting 6 to 12 people that you don't know, and actually you can't know as a lawyer or a party to make this decision for you. And as soon as we start throwing people in jail because we don't like the way they made a decision, the jury system is ruined and it's over. So that's why when we have a unique situation like this, we've got to look at the specific facts and situation surrounding this juror to determine whether or not this is appropriate. And that's what we're going to do today. So hit that like button if you guys are interested in this content, and make sure you subscribe to our channel if you're new here and just checking this out because you saw this wild story where a juror was thrown in jail and you're brand new to this channel. Subscribe and let me know in the comments. But let's get to this video in this story that we can break down and learn from together.
Dismissing you as a juror in this case, I'm going to find that you're an indirect criminal contempt, instruct the state of Florida to file charges against you.
It was a hard.
You are an indirect criminal contempt, and the judge is instructing the state of Florida to file charges against you. We'll talk about what situations that can even happen.
Heartbreaking blow to a family waiting more than 12 years for closure, a mistrial in the sentencing of their son's killer. A convicted killer whose resentencing ended with that mistrial gets another chance now to avoid the death penalty this week. The jury selection in what will now be the third sentencing for Bestman Okafor is set for Tuesday. He's accused of killing Alex Zaldivar in 2012, was sentenced to death right after, but then it didn't stick. News 6's Brian Didlick is here tonight digging into this. Brian, you have been following this for years. How did this happen?
So just off the introduction, we can see what another mistrial does to everybody involved. First off, a criminal defendant who seems like not just accused, but convicted, waiting to find out what his sentence is and his potential appellate rights. Now, I know a lot of people probably don't care about that, but that's important. But what's even more important is the victim finding and getting justice. Final justice. What is the punishment going to be? Is it going to be an eye for an eye, a life for a life? Or is he going to be sitting in prison for life? They deserve a final resolution. This is now going to be the third time they have to sit through sentencing of something they know. They can look across the table and know what this guy did to their loved one. And that's why the juror's conduct in this situation is so important. It's not just her. It's not just a lawyer or a judge that's inconvenienced. It's not just time, and it's not just even money. It is all of those things. It is a waste of a lot of money and time and inconvenience, but it's also people's lives being affected. It's justice being delayed, which we know on the heels of Martin Luther King Day. Delayed justice is no justice at all.
Well, Eric, this case has been riddled with mishaps. Tuesday's jury selection will now make this the third time the court has tried to sentence Bestman Okafor. Like you said, Okafor was originally sentenced to death back in 2015. That sentencing delayed for years after the Florida Supreme Court went back and forth on requirements for the death penalty. The courts got back on track for Okafor's sentencing, but got halted back in November, all because of one juror who told the court she discussed the proceedings with a friend, but it turns out Kayla depends.
So the initial accusation or admission, whatever you want to call it, from the juror is that she discussed the case with a friend. That's happened before. It's happened in many cases. Sometimes you can just boot that juror if you have an alternate. Sometimes it causes a mistrial like this case. But if it's an accident and you admit it to the court, you should not be in fear of going to jail. And if that's how this case turned out, I truly believe the judge would have said, thank you for telling me, because we don't want a verdict that's just going to get overturned later and to waste more time. Unfortunately, it has to be a mistrial. Unfortunately, we're going to have to do this again. Thank you for letting me know. Sorry to the rest of the members of the jury. Sorry to the victim, the defendant, the lawyers, everybody involved. We're going to have to do this again. And that would have been that. And I don't think this juror would have been punished, even though she technically would have violated a court order. But that's not how this story ends.
Penna calls the mistrial on purpose. A Tuesday jury selection is set to begin for the Bestman Okafor sentencing. Okafor was sentenced to death after being convicted for killing 19-year-old Alex Zaldivar, who was set to testify against him back in 2015.
You solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but.
So the female to the left of her lawyer is the juror in question. And so when you hear her speak, she's the juror that has been sentenced to, I think, 170-something days in jail.
But the truth, so help you God?
Kayla Penna saw a judge earlier this month. She's charged with direct criminal contempt after causing a mistrial back in November in Okafor's third sentencing trial back in November of last
He just said direct. I believe the judge said he finds her guilty of indirect, or wants her to be charged with indirect contempt, but we'll keep listening.
year. At that time, she told the judge she talked about the case with a friend.
No juror has the right to violate the rules that we all live by.
But during her hearing earlier this month, she told that same judge she lied about talking to anyone because she no longer wanted to fulfill her obligations.
So now the story changes. The facts change. She didn't accidentally speak to a friend or a loved one or a parent or an ex or even a husband or a wife, right? As we've heard accusations tossed in other cases. But she just said that she did and lied in order to purposely cause a mistrial, purposely violating court orders, purposely wasting everybody's time and taxpayer dollars, purposely causing more damage and grief to the victim's family. I think anybody could see, if anybody makes those kinds of results, whatever their actions are, if you violate court orders, if you waste everybody's time, if you waste the government's money, God forbid, everybody knows how they feel about that. They like to waste their own money. Separate conversation. But then if you cause more damage and grief to an already victimized victim's family, you deserve punishment. And that's where the line is. Intentional conduct and lying to cause damage to victims, you should be thrown in jail. Just because you're picked to be on a jury does not give you the right to do that in Florida or any other state. Please feel free to let me know if you disagree in the comments. If you think jurors should be immune to any prosecution regardless of the actions they take, because I don't think you feel that way. But if you do, let me know. If there's a legitimate argument for it, I want to hear it. Respectful, legitimate arguments and discussions and disagreements is what I live for. Let's keep listening to the facts here.
She did not want to be on this in particular jury. She did mention that her work does not.
So I believe that these are also people that sat on the jury with her, and now they're going to go through the statements she made to them, making it clear she planned, knew it was wrong, still did it anyway. Everybody else be damned. Her selfish desires over what everybody else thinks about. On full display here.
Anyone because she no longer wanted to fulfill her obligations.
She did not want to be on this in particular jury. She did mention that her work does not provide compensation for jury duty.
Jurors testified against Dapina, saying she stated multiple times her frustrations with being a juror. One juror mentioned she verbalized her intent to cause a mistrial the night before Okafor's sentencing trial was supposed to end.
She was upset.
It's crazy that one day left and she couldn't work through it. But so she told them she was going to do this. So it's hard for her to get out of when everybody heard her talking about this. And that's problematic, obviously. Now, jobs not paying when you're on jury duty. There are different thoughts on that. Should you not? Legally, you don't have to, but you can't fire somebody for doing their jury duty. So, that's kind of another discussion that if you guys have questions about that, we can talk about that on another video.
Cause a mistrial the night before Okafor's sentencing trial was supposed to end.
She was upset. She said that she needed to be at work that night. We were called back in the room and the judge told us we were going to be sequestered for the night, explained the rules, and then we went back into the deliberation room and she asked to speak to the judge. And before she walked out, she said she was about to make that a mistrial.
Dapina.
So again, timeline fits right when the rubber meets the road, right when they're going to get sequestered to do their duty and come up with their sentence. She's like, no, I'm out. I don't want to do it anymore. And that's really problematic. And again, that's why jury selection, I don't know how the jury selection went in this case. I wonder if she was trying to get out before and they didn't let her. Usually if people are really going to do something like this to get out, we can sniff it out in jury selection and we just let them go. We don't want them to ruin the trial, even though we want people to do their duty and we don't want people to squirm out of it for bad reasons or selfish reasons. The point is we want to get the trial done. We want to have a fair trial for the victims, for the defendant, for the judge, for the community, for everybody involved. So we don't want this to happen. And we probably would have let her go if she was really going to take a hardline stance like this. So my guess is she didn't quite so much in jury selection. Then she gets on the jury, then she ruins it for everybody and causes more damage to the victims later, purposely, intentionally lying to get out of her duty. We don't want jurors to do that. And that's the point, is we want jurors to feel protected. We want them to feel safe. We want them to do their duty and come up with their answer. But what we don't want is them to get on a jury and then think they can do whatever they want and nobody else matters in the system. Criminal defendants, victims, witnesses, judges, lawyers, none of those people matter. What matters is what I want to do. And if I want out, doesn't matter everything that's gone into this, all the preparation time, energy, emotions from everybody involved. Doesn't matter. If I want out, I can cry uncle and get out whenever I want. We want to deter that. We don't want jurors to think that they can do that. We don't want jurors to think that they can go rogue and break judges' orders and not follow the law and do whatever they want. We also want to deter that. So I do think that this jail sentence should deter that, should make jurors think twice about just going rogue and doing something they know is against the rules, which this juror clearly knew.
In her defense,
there was no intention of causing any harm, and there was no ill will from my end. I was truly overwhelmed and did not know how to handle this situation.
And here, I feel really bad for her, and I do believe her that she was not trying to hurt anybody. I don't think there was an intent to hurt anybody. I think her full intention was she needed to get out of it to do what she wanted to do, and everybody else's needs, desires, wants, preparation time, all of that was secondary to what she wanted. And I'm sorry if I sound overly harsh, but to me, that is what this decision was just a selfish decision. I do not think she wanted to hurt a single person. I truly don't believe that. Here's the issue. Take it up with the judge. Explain it to the judge. Tell the judge you need to go to work that night. Maybe the judge would have delayed the trial. We've seen judges. I've seen it happen. We heard it talked about in the Murdoch case, taking breaks for smoke breaks. If you need childcare, we'll break early this day. We'll be off one day in a trial because this person really needs to go to work or can't find childcare or whatever. Delay it for a day. Don't cause a mistrial. But once you say you spoke to your friend, it's over. Because now if it goes against the defense, that's a huge appellate issue. Did the juror lie? Did she not lie? How can we prove it? So bring it to the judge. Would have been the right move. Judge, I'm overwhelmed. I'm stuck. I don't know if I can do this. And if that's the truth and mentally there's a break and you just can't do it, the judge would probably encourage you to try. But if you couldn't, then it's a mistrial and you're not going to jail. Honesty is the best policy. The truth would have been the best way to handle this case. A lie very commonly blows up in everyone's face. And that's what happened here. And I do believe she's telling the truth here, that she had no ill will. She wasn't trying to hurt anybody, but she made a bad decision for selfish reasons. And now everybody has been damaged, including her.
And now that judge went on to sentence Depina to 179 days in jail, the max time for her offense. Eric?
You know, Brian, I have talked.
It's as bad as it gets. I mean, that's throwing the book at her. It's 179 days. A weekend in jail is a deterrent and a punishment, in my opinion. 179 days? That leads me to believe there was more to that hearing. There was more intent. There was more selfishness. There was more reckless disregard for everybody else involved for the fact that he threw 179 days. Because if there wasn't, if it was really just she was so overwhelmed and she told one lie, I think some jail time is warranted. I would probably appeal the sentence of 179 days.
To Alex Zaldivar's father, Raphael, so many times over the past 12 years. He is so deeply committed to getting justice. He's so passionate and so frustrated that this has dragged on now for so long.
Yeah,
They're talking about the victim's father, who's been at every court date. And now, because of this juror, he's got to do this all over again. This is his life. His son was murdered. And that's why this is so important. And we just can't be doing this as a society. I think jurors should be so protected. I think they should be given every benefit of the doubt. But when they admittedly do something like this and cause more harm and delay to the victims, just can't happen. Just can't.
That is correct. Well, after this latest trial, the family says that they are disappointed and just want this case to move forward. Here's what they said at the last time that we spoke with them.
She's putting her family through this again. And then we don't want to go through this again. I don't want Alex's mother to go through this again. And it's tragic. And it's very tragic. And she didn't take this very seriously. And then I think for the future, other jurors will come out here and give that a second thought.
A second thought.
That's the point, right? To deter future similar action. And I think this judge did that.
Indeed. Again, Okafor, the jury selection for his sentencing is set for this Tuesday.
So that is the story of how a juror got thrown in jail, which I hate to think of jurors getting thrown in jail. I absolutely hate it. I think it should be an absolute last resort. But I kind of think this was warranted. Not kind of. I do think this was warranted. Maybe not 179 days. I probably would, if I was the judge, I'd probably given her less time, but I would have put her in jail to realize how important and serious this is and how her actions have consequences. What do you guys think? Do you think it was appropriate? Do you think this ruins the jury system? Do you think the sentence was too long, too short? I can't wait to read your comments and hear what you all thought about this. But let me know what you think. Hit that like button on the way out. I'll check the comments to see what you guys thought. Until next time, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And don't forget to check out the Lawyer You Know podcast with new seasons dropping every quarter. If you have a case you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, The Lawyer You Know.